Hello, and welcome to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I am so glad you are here with me. My name is Carrie Dahle, and I am your host. I am an entrepreneur, author, podcaster, manifester, and motivator. And I am on a mission to empower you to create the life of your dreams. If you are looking to up-level your life, relationships, finances, productivity, and success, you have come to the right place. I will share with you tools, resources, strategies, my failures, and my successes that have all helped me achieve the life of my dreams. It is my goal with this podcast to help you see your potential and empower you to create the life of your dreams. So let's get to it. Welcome to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I'm Carrie Dahle, your host. And today I have someone I am really excited to interview and talk to. It is Colleen Avis. She is someone who entered my life in May and she keeps coming back around. And the more time I spend with her, the more time I want to spend with her. She is a coach and a mentor, a best-selling author. She's this amazing human that really focuses on the whole person, their body, their mind, their spaces, all of their spaces. So welcome, Colleen.
Hi, Carrie. I know May was a good month for us. I was so happy to have you come into my orbit too. It feels really nice.
Well, I know that you have a lot of stories that you could probably share, but I truly believe that stories connect people. And I'd love you to share whatever stories in your heart that makes you feel like that's a part of you and that's what you're doing in this world.
Wow, you just gave me a big pond to fish from, which I love. What really is coming to me in this moment, and I think something I'm working on, so I might stumble as I talk about this because this is something that's kind of personal to me, and one of the pieces of the journey that I'm trying to take on is the story of the story not being your story. There's so many things from my past that defined me that I allowed to create certain parts of me in ways that I would respond in certain ways. And I would really identified as what some of my stories were. And some of those things were put on me. I guess if I really think about it from like a spiritual place, I chose them all. But for so long, I allowed what had happened or things I had achieved or things I had not achieved be who I was showing up in the world. And I'm really working right now on releasing some of those stories or anchors that feel like they're holding me back or defining me in a way that's not feeling authentic to myself in this moment. Yeah. So I that's a really curious space for me right now. That's a really fun story space for me right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And I think as we get older, we do start to come into that on our own, right? We watch our children doing the same thing. We watch them taking on the things that maybe we put on them or taught them and, place them in these spaces that were our space, really. And as they discover their own, you kind of find that freedom in watching them. At least that's what I did.
Yeah, that's so cool because my husband and I dropped our son off at college. I'm not counting 16 days ago, 3 hours and 42 minutes. And he's our only, not that makes it better, worse, harder, easier, but for us, it was like the third leg of the stool just kind of wonked off. And one of the things that I've been working on that I think is in direct relationship, what you're saying in story creation is I want him to dance on his own stage, right? So many people will say, well, how hard is it to drop him off? Well, thankfully, he's very happy. So I just feel like I'm sitting in this moment today. I just feel like I'm sitting in the front row watching his show. And it's really difficult after 18 years of trying to help support the show, right? That you're like actively on the stage with, to kind of sit in the front row, know you have the privilege of being in the front row and just watch versus influence, tell, direct, or whatever. And I think that's very similar to the decisions that I was not necessarily able to make on my own as I moved through my own life, right? Where I would pick up something someone told me, like, you're not worth something, or you don't belong here, or you're only going to be this because you grew up in X. And I absorbed those and I worked within those parameters. And it's not even like it's a limiting belief. It's not that it limited me. It actually completely defined me. And I allowed it to do that until one day I was like, wait a minute, who's making the decisions here? Right. And so I'm trying to use some of that path that I'm on right now, not only with myself, very much so with my son. You know, I feel like if I did the best job I can, then I've really got to let him fly. Of course, I'm here for him at any time he wants to call. Finn, if you're listening, call anytime. I got you, babe. I'm coming. But it feels like a true release of it feels like an honest place of letting go, and it feels like an honest place of being present. And it's something it's almost hard to define. I just feel it. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's like watching it unfold with my son also allows me to reflect on, well, I'm not bringing that old memory where I beat the crud out of myself for 40 years with me into the future. Like I'm leaving that over there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you for that connection with kids. Cause I think it's really relevant.
I mean, I'm not saying that that's what's making you do it now, because I think you've probably been doing this for a little while if it's been in your mind, but it's this, it's such a fascinating thing to like, let go of those rules, let go of those, boxes that other people put us in over the years. Right.
Yeah.
And to really,
like, why when our voice is the voice that we hear the most in our head, right? I'm going to make this up. Okay. I'm going to guess that of 100% of what you hear as thoughts, input, or whatever, 99.99% of it is your own.
Okay? Oh, absolutely.
Good, I mean, it's like as much water we are in the body, we are the thoughts we hear, right? And so why would, number one, I say bad things to myself? And two, why would I let the other voices be louder than my own? Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's a million reasons why that is. And, you know, psychologically, we could get into the depths of that. But the second you hear your voice say something else, like, go for it, listen, jump, fly, trust, you know, be excited about it. And if you can't be excited about it by yourself, get involved in a collaboration, surround yourself with people that want to hear your crazy, wild ideas and voice, you know, sit in the front row of the people you most admire, whether you know them or you don't know them, and watch and observe and change the voice, change the tune, if you will, to what it is that's creating, you know, whatever it is that's next for you. So I don't know, that unravels a whole bunch of things. Like, what's your purpose? What are your core values? Why do you show up? Like, but in general, like just listening to yourself, I think, is powerful.
Yeah.
Curious. Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. And I love that you were talking about collaborating, and that makes me think of Sacred Spaces for you and these beautiful books that you've created. Do you want to share where that came from? Why you started that? Why?
Yeah. So these books are so much more than books to me. I mean, they show up in the form of a book. It's a collaborative project, as you know, if anyone's not familiar. They're called Sacred Spaces, Subtle Shifts for Mind, Body, Home Transformations. And we can come back to the mind, body, home part. But the idea is that it's a collection of, or subtle shifts part, it's a collection of 20 to 25 authors that come and, like I like to say, stand naked on the edge of the world and be really vulnerable about something in their life, a story, even if it's something like I'm sharing right now, right? I'm kind of saying like, hey, I'm working on this process of like being a new human being. Like, really tell me more. Why do you do that? Why, you know, so to be in that type of place. And so the books allow us to be in a space where a collection of us can tell our individual unique stories. And then because the individuals in the book have experienced life, I also ask them to share with us a practice. Like, how'd you survive that story? Or what allowed you to project or learn from that story that you've told? And so the reader has an opportunity to connect, maybe not feel as alone, maybe be inspired by someone, and then also to learn how that in particular author actually got from point A to point B. And so It may not be prescriptive for everyone, but it might be inspirational for everyone. So the books really have become a passion for me. I like to think of them as a movement. The idea of sacred spaces is treating the time, the space, the energy, the mind, the body, and the home that we have so generously been given, and know that they are sacred, and for you to cultivate that in a way that feels true to yourself. So thank you for bringing up the books.
Well, they're important, and they're an important piece of you, I believe. And they're also an important piece of what I think you're doing in this world. And you're connecting people through stories. You said it a second ago, you're keeping them from feeling alone and that they're the only ones, because I don't really think that there's one thing any of us will go through in this lifetime that somebody else hasn't dealt with in some other way. I mean, that's not the exact same story, right? And
totally.
and so, but a lot of times we feel like we're the only ones. We feel like, God, why is that happening to me? Well, it happened to, Shelly over here. It happened to Colleen over there.
But we don't talk about that.
Yes.
Right. Nobody's willing to stand naked on the edge of the world. So instead, we all walk through life feeling lost and lonely, like we're the only ones. And I love, the reason I laughed at what you said earlier is it reminded me so I have an interior design business. And I think it's really ironic. I called it interior design because everybody knows, you think interior design, they're like, oh, caller, you need a new headboard. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Right. But my business of interior design was really about, and it was before human design was kind of a thing, right? That idea of human design was like, no, I want your interiors to be a place you love to live. So whether your interior is here, your interior is here, or your interior is here, right? This home space, car, whatever that you live in, you should love to be there, because if you have a mess in your car, you probably have a mess in your mind, because we cannot uncouple these interiors. And that's really what I'm very passionate about. And I know the reason that I created that, and most of my coaching clients are also interior clients, interestingly enough, because as we start to unclutter this vortex, this axis, or this axis, whatever, they're like, wait, that's not cluttered, but oh my gosh, my office is cluttered, or so it's very hard to uncouple the interior design. And what I love about it is if you make a shift in your mind, even if it's subtle, that can ripple through all your spaces, right? So there's this compounding beauty that we can get. But the reason I laugh, was I had an interior design professor say to me, which was like my second career, because I spent 20 years in the corporate world. But he said, as you guys design your spaces, as you lay out furniture, as you look at spatials and colors and things like that, nothing that you do is new. Nothing. And that doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't important. Actually, what it allows you to do is trust what's already out there. Everybody knows there's 4 legs on a chair, and coffee tables can be round, square, or oval. Trust that it's your unique touch. It's who you are in your soul that makes people want to work with you and makes the space that you co-create with them to feel like home to them. Yes. And that to me is even more important in coaching and in conversations than it's like, please show up as yourself, please. Because I've seen everybody else. Yeah. So like, give me your juicy uniqueness. So that's what I try to do in my coaching world. That's what I'm trying to do with these books. It's what I'm trying to help people empower feeling safe to do. And mostly because I spent most of my life not feeling that way. I cultivate my own community, and I don't want anyone to feel that way. And so that's kind of how I got there, I think. Yeah. And I'm still figuring it out.
So I had 2 thoughts that were like resonating as we said that. The first one, you would have no idea, but I journal every day. I have a planner, like I have my lists of things, right? And today, one of the things was, Carrie, you got to clean up your office. Like it's getting a little cluttery, and it makes me feel, and I love my office space. Like it's truly one of my favorite rooms in my house normally. But when I walked in this morning, I'm like, what is that pile? What is that there? This is bad. So I'm just laughing about, you're right. Because it totally can shift who you are mentally, physically, all the feelings. I mean, I literally was burning a gratitude candle trying to clean it out before we
smudging.
I'm like, it just needs to get, like, I need to feel better about it. And then
I love that.
The other thing was just yes, we can all, not all, but several of us can be doing the exact same thing, but it's our unique spin on it. That's why I love to support other women doing, even if they're in the same space as me, because there's no jealousy. What's attracted to you is one person, what's attracted to me is another person. And
Yes. This is why I love you. This is why when we met, I was like, she's my soul sister. We're switchboard sisters. That's a whole nother thing, but switchboard sister is like, we choose to come from a place of abundance or lack. And I understand that old stories and experiences and things that are given to us in life, whether they're comfortable or uncomfortable, are influential in how one chooses to respond or react, to something. And what really drew me to you was your honest sense of abundance. Like, I remember when we first sat down and we were reading through or brainstorming that chapter that you were writing for one of the other books that you were in. And I thought, your story just told this place of like, I think there's room for everybody. And it wasn't the direct story that you were telling. It was the way you went about it. It was the way you were trying to make people feel, right? What's the quote that says, people aren't going to remember what you did. They're going to remember how you feel, how you made them feel. And my apologies for not remembering who said that. But in the vein of nothing is new, I'm just going to borrow that from whoever said it. And yeah, I love what you're saying, that there's this abundance. And not to harp on the books too much, but there's a lot of authors in the book that are in direct quote unquote competition with what I do. You're a Thrive coach. I'm a Thrive coach. We're all in that same space. And there's room for everybody. Mm-hmm. And there are going to be people that call me and say, oh, I'd really like to coach with you. And then we get to know each other and maybe I'm not a good fit. I love saying, will you call Carrie? She's an amazing coach. Like, yes. And right. There's room for us to lift and support one another, which ultimately is lifting and supporting ourselves. Right. Mm-hmm. So you're a badass and I love it. So thank you for bringing me that abundance. I receive it with a lot of gratitude.
I love that. Again, back to I had to bring the gratitude candle in here. It just was too much this morning.
What am I burning? Oh, I'm burning worthy.
Oh, that's good too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, mine was gratitude. So, so talk more about not necessarily the book, Sacred Spaces, but what is subtle shifts? Sorry, I couldn't think of it. Talk more about that with me. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I feel like everyone feels like I shouldn't say it that way. Let me back that up. That's like such a sweeping, generalized, like words matter, and that doesn't feel true. So let me just, that whole saying, sticks and stones will break your bones and words will never hurt you. I think it is the biggest bunch of honky donk lies.
Yeah. Well, that's why Taylor Swift changed it snakes, right?
See, I'm not a Swiftie. I gotta go look that up.
Well, yeah. So sticks and stones will break my bones, but snakes won't hurt me. Yeah, that's.
Oh, okay. Go Swiftie. I don't not like her. I just don't really.
You don't know.
Yeah. So subtle shifts. So just even that reframe that we just did there, right? That stop, that pause of like, okay, I'm going to walk through this because I think this might be interesting. Maybe.
Yeah.
You asked me, tell me more about subtle shifts. And then something happened with Taylor Swift and we all got distracted like we do in the world of Taylor Swift, right? Mm-hmm. And I started to say something that was a generalization about everybody. And to me, words matter. The energy, the exchange, the understanding, the clarity. And as humans, we're quite primordial or primitive, I guess is the right word, not primordial, primitive in our language. So, oh my God, I just went to Friendly's and my ice cream was amazing. What do you mean? Right? You might have had amazing ice cream. I might have had amazing ice cream. I thought it was amazing because it was super cold and refreshing. And you thought it was amazing because you've been craving the flavor of strawberry. There is a complete disconnect in what amazing is. One for you is about flavor. One for me is about temperature. Those are completely different things. So you can imagine if you extrapolate that over business conversation or people in a relationship trying to talk about what brings them comfort or intimacy or importance. And you can really be like talking past each other. Mm-hmm. So it is a very subtle shift for me to catch myself saying something that does not feel true and authentic, pausing, and then coming back to it and saying, actually, that's not how I want to say it. I could have just buzzed right by it, but it's an important shift to not stereotype a sweeping group of people in this example. So a subtle shift to me offers an incredibly impactful result. So we now know that in that example that I'm not going to just stereotype a whole group of people, that I think it's important to actually say that there are a number of us that believe, not everybody, there is a number of us that believe that we have to master something that I will have achieved when I have my high school degree, or I finish a certain certification, or I get married, or I buy a house, or whatever it is, or I come to peace with myself in some way, right? Some massive way. And we aim for that. And then lots of times, if we don't make it, if we don't get there, we believe we've failed or fallen short, or we have a sense about ourselves that's like, oh, well, I'm just not good at that, or I'm a procrastinator, or I'm whatever. So for me, subtle shifts is stepping away from that idea that we need to master something and stepping into the idea that there's a mystery around even the smallest changes, right? So, okay, I'm working right now on a breathwork certification, okay? And there's like 6 different steps, and I just got to 1A. Well, I'm celebrating 1A. It's just a little teeny shift. It doesn't mean I can go teach massive breathwork things, but I'm celebrating that that's a little bit of shift, that I understand that nitric oxide is made in the nose, and that can change my overall health and things like that. It's like, well, it's just a teeny little thing. Cleaning your office, that's a subtle shift. It had a massive impact. Mm-hmm. Deciding to be an author in a book and writing your draft, just that is a mysterious, fun, subtle shift that might empower you to feel a little more confident. It might also make you feel a little bit more nervous, which is also a wonderful opportunity. So we can make our greatest changes and navigate, and I think gain a lot in the world and in being our best selves by taking the first step, right? The teeniest little shift. Well, that was a really long path to a subtle shift, but
it was perfect and it was beautiful. And I think you'll love this. So last week I was in Chicago for a real estate, a leadership summit and the keynote speaker, which was hilarious because as I was looking through the whole agenda going, okay, who's speaking? What are all the things? This is the one I thought I totally don't need to stick around for. Like, this is not going to be worth my time. But I happened to be seated at a table that really wasn't the easiest one for me to like get out. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a little time. If it's really bad, I'm going to move on. She was outstanding. She was the best thing that happened the entire time I was there, which blew my mind. But what I loved was her whole thesis was really about generations and ageism within that and how we classify people. But her point was that if you want to get to this goal here, then you have to change the experience here, because the experience is what creates the belief, and then the belief creates the action, and the action gets you to the goal. But it was the whole way that she like presented it, right? I just thought how beautiful, and also how important that she actually call out the fact that we, just like you did earlier, accidentally, you generalize something. When, I mean, Jeff and I, we laugh all the time because we are literally a year apart. Yet our choices in music, our views on the world, like all these things are so different within us. I mean, he will joke and say that he thinks that I was born just a couple years too early because he thinks I'm a millennial. And I'm like, okay, but it's so funny that we do like these generalizations, and we're okay as a society to say, oh, that boomer or that millennial or that Gen Xer, when we would never say that white person, that Black person, that, you know. So anyways, I just thought it was fascinating, and I thought the whole changing your experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's dangerous to use our words with a lack of intentionality. I think it's dangerous because I do think there's a lot of peace that gets lost. There's a lot of, well, I don't actually really care what that person's saying. That's the other side of it, right? Is I'm not listening enough because I actually don't care enough necessarily, because words are just words and we're just all kind of in this mosh pit of speaking to one another versus having a space where the uniqueness of that individual or the value of what opportunity might be in front of us, you staying like, well, I don't really want to be here. And then the universe clearly was like, sit your butt down.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I got something I want you to hear. Like, this is important for you, right? So that shift of staying. But also what I loved about what you did is you said, I'm not sure. So I'm going to pause. And if it's not working out for me, I will make a shift, which I think is also really an important part of that subtle shift part, right? Which is you always have the choice to change your mind.
Yeah.
Always. Always. And that might be easier said than done in certain areas of challenge or trauma or certain parts of the world. And I respect that there are, things that maybe I'm missing, right? If we were talking about being in a poverty place in India or something, right? There might be some sort of shift, different kind of ability to shift. But to the people we're talking about in this population and the people that are probably listening to your podcast, is you always have a choice to make a shift. And the most important part about that is to actually stop, listen, and decide when and how you might want to pivot, and to be brave enough to pivot or shift in the way that's unique to you. And that, to me, is what I work really, really aligned with when I'm co-creating with a client or an author, or even just in conversation with my husband, honestly, like trying to keep that relationship happy and healthy, is like, I don't want to sacrifice myself. And so I am willing to shift and pivot, but also doing it with clarity that's honoring me and not just making a decision because, okay, let's just it'll just be easier if I just agree to do what he wants to do. I'm not talking about golf, right? I'm talking about like bigger life decisions. Yeah. And so recognizing the importance of you and that you're worth being whole as an individual, and knowing and trusting yourself enough to say, even if it's a little teeny thing, I'm allowed to be unique. It's going to be powerful, and I'm worth it, right? So that subtle shift piece, I think, really does require someone to feel quite whole. And it's not always, and this as a coach, it's not always, people just don't always know that.
Yeah.
And so getting into what your real big P purpose is versus little P purpose, getting into your core value set, getting into what other strengths you have that you've leaned into in the past, where you can say, okay, I did something really well over there. I felt proud of myself. What about that do I apply in these other areas where I'm maybe feeling a little bit more cautious about making a shift, right? So that unique factor of who we are, I think, is underestimated because we're so programmed to like, well, society says we're doing this. So that's what I'm supposed to do. So I don't really have that much choice. No, you do have a lot of choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the other spectrum, that made me think about, so yesterday when we were meeting with your writing group, which was awesome, you were really, and you said this earlier as we were talking today about standing basically naked in front of people, being naked on the edge, or I don't know exactly how you said that, but
standing naked on the edge of the world.
There you go, standing naked on the edge of the world. But you also, at least yesterday, touched on the fact that that doesn't mean that you aren't, like, you don't have that cloth to put over you close by. Like, it doesn't mean that you are sharing every single detail or all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you get to choose that, right? I think that there is a place where vulnerability allows us to speak with a language that's clearer, right? An honesty about what makes me feel whole or complete in a relationship versus you. Or one of the examples I have of these two women, they're actually in the book, who the three of us, we all live really close, and we've talked for a really long time about doing some sort of wellness thing together, And we all decided that there was an opportunity to do something like that in this past May, early May.
Mm-hmm.
And I was all on board. I loved it. I love these ladies. I don't want to miss anything with them, right? It's like doing something with you. Will you be on my podcast? Yes. Right? Yes, I want to talk to you. Yes, I want to do that. And there was a really big voice in my head that kept saying, your son is graduating in May and going away to college right now. And if you go do that, you are going to have to work until 11 or 12 o'clock at night. You're going to have to sacrifice this. You're going to have to sacrifice that, right? So that is part of the standing naked on the edge of the world, which is this being honest about, I can't do this, right? So that's kind of what I think about that honesty. This is not going to serve me, right? As much as I might like to do it or not like to do it, this isn't going to serve me. So that's kind of what I mean by that, like that honesty of yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to share the deepest, darkest secret of your life, right? It doesn't mean you're all completely exposed about everything. So yeah, that there is a line there, right? And I think some people get a little too naked, right? You're like, whoa, TMI, 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 right? But maybe it's not TMI to them. Maybe it's the first time they've had an opportunity to say something, explore something, right? And just kind of receiving that. But yes, in the storytelling world, in the books, in order to grab an attention of a reader, we want to show people, we want people to feel what we're saying. And that's that nakedness of honesty. And maybe sometimes you're standing naked on the edge of the world and there's no one sitting in the audience. And that's okay too. Like being naked and honest with yourself versus naked and honest in front of everybody, right? There's probably 2 stages or 84 stages we all stand on somewhere in between. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about standing naked on the edge of the world? And
I think it's terrifying, right? It's totally terrifying, but it's something that this year, I think it really started with you and maybe Laura a little bit, but really probably you, just being super authentic and sharing like those inner thoughts. Like as I was writing that first chapter, where's the inner thought on this? Where's the, where was your head? You're telling the story and I can follow, but there's thoughts, there's feelings, there's other things that go into it. And I came home from that. I mean, and I finished up the chapter, but I came home from that and I realized that with my own group. I have a monthly group of ladies that we get together. Nice. And I realized that while some of them knew certain parts of me in the past, there was a lot of things that I hadn't shared. And it's not like shame or it's not embarrassment. I mean, it kind of is, but it's more that's in the past. Like I want to leave it there, but it explains why I am who I am today and explains why I believe and behave in the way I do. And I realized with that maybe if I started sharing those things, that I could touch them in a different way than just trying to keep them focused on where I want them to go, where I want them to get to.
Well, it helps people go there, right? If I showed up in the world in how I operate today, where I feel pretty confident, I feel pretty connected to what's important to me. There was a very long path to that. And there were a lot of things that happened that were like, I'm just going to play small and hide in my shell and conform and do the things. I think the majority of people have something like that. So the more you are honest about how you got to a place of being able to be as abundant as you are, the more I share that we all can glow as bright as I intend and hope to glow, the more I can say, and I think we could say, you glow, you have abundance, I have abundance, whatever the words are that we're using, to describe where we've come down our path, the more I can say, it's a hell of a road getting here. And by the way, these are the 14 steps I didn't know I was taking, but I took. What if one person hears that story and goes, oh, she wasn't just born like that? I can actually I could feel that way? Sign me up. What are the 14 steps that I got to take? Or what are my 12 steps? Or I could jump to step 7, So I think my willingness to be naked on the stage of the world is I could be a TMI person sometimes. But the intention is like, even though the person I'm talking to might deny that they're anywhere near what they might walk away and go, ooh, okay. You know, you know what keeps ringing in my head about this is this idea of comfort and discomfort.
Yes.
Everybody will say, and this is kind of everybody, I'm checking my words on this. It's good or it's bad. That's good, that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a client who 2 years ago could not tell themselves that they loved themselves. 50-plus-year-old individual. And love was a bad thing. It was uncomfortable. If you threw the word love out there, most people would say, oh, that's a good thing. But actually, it's not to everyone, right? There is comfort and discomfort. And so I like to take the words good and bad away. And I like for us to look at ourselves when we're trying to be our own selves, or we're trying to be unique, or we're trying to find the bravery to stand on the edge of the world and go, okay, instead of something's good or bad, what makes me uncomfortable and what makes me comfortable? And where in the comfort am I staying comfortable because it doesn't make me have to feel uncomfortable, which might mean I might want to look at that. Or where am I in the discomfort where there's actually an opportunity for growth? I mean, I'm really simplifying the back and forth there, but if there was someone listening to this going, I want to be abundant like Carrie, or I want to shine like Carrie, or I like this open, vulnerable thing, but I don't know where to start. I think one of the places is really just being reflective with yourself and going, what makes me comfortable? What makes me uncomfortable? Is there truth in those? And is there opportunity in either of those to start to move in a direction that might feel more in alignment with where I think I'm stuck, or where I feel I'm off, or where I might find some sort of growth, a la it be a mystery at the moment, you know?
Yeah. See, this is why you're so good at shifting spaces and helping people do this.
Because I've shifted so many times myself.
Maybe.
You know, I am passionate about people feeling whole. It absolutely breaks my heart that someone doesn't feel whole. Because
so
we're
many
all
people
so
don't.
worthy. We're so worthy. We were born divine to be whole. And somewhere along that path of life, we allow that to be taken from us. And I don't know what little trick between comfort and discomfort, or big P purpose and little P purpose, or coffee meditation, or I don't know what little trick or tool we've got to get creative and curious about to help each unique individual find the path that works for them. But that's what lights me up. Like, how curious and creative do I need to get with each of the authors, right? With any client that comes my way, to create what's unique, not for them, but with them? How do I get under the skin that's like, okay, who cares what Gwyneth Paltrow says? Who cares what Oprah says? Who cares what Wayne Dyer says? What do you say? And like, how do we get, Mr. or Mrs. Client, what you're saying out of you so that we can create what you love? Nobody runs around and justifies why they paint their house yellow or why they paint their house blue. They say, I love a blue house. I love a yellow house. No one judges you for that. Cool. You like yellow. I would have painted it blue. Okay, whatever. God forbid you told somebody why you do something mentally, or why you made a decision about how you raise your children, or why you made a decision about who you love or how you love or where you love. Then it's like, whoa, that's not how you're supposed to do that. Well, why? You know why I do it? Because I wanna. And to have that confidence to be able to choose a blue house or a yellow house in your mind or in your heart, you know, being mindful of not hurting other people intentionally. But if you hurt somebody because they don't like what you're doing, but what you're doing is a kind act to yourself,
yeah,
paint your damn emotions blue or yellow, whatever one you got to do to light yourself up. So how are you lighting yourself up? You know, so apologies for that.
Why are you there's nothing to apologize for. I love how passionate you are about all of this. It's fantastic.
It matters. It matters.
It does matter. It does matter. So what's next for you?
Oh, this third book, right? I mean, this third book is next for me. What is next for me? God, that's a really good question. Thank you for asking that. You're catching me. In the small p purpose, the next for me is nurturing an adult child. What's next for me is co-creating an experience for this book right now for the authors to be magic. And then ultimately it to be magic for the readers and for everyone that picks it up to get what they want from it. My small p purpose is continuing to listen deeply to the people that allow me the privilege to work in a co-creative space with them, right? Whether it be in the mind, the body, or the home. My big purpose, the one that I think my soul shows up in the world for as far as like what's next, is to continue to step away from the things that aren't true, to stop playing small, to stop believing the things that I've told myself for a long time or somebody else told me, and recognize that there's an unlimited amount of potential and opportunity and abundance to enjoy it, and to know it's okay to step into that and not be like, well, there are worse things in the world. Well, there are worse things in the world, but that doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to be worthy. So that's what's next, like it's curious. It's a mystery. I don't think I'm going to master anything.
I doubt that. And actually, I love it because you just totally circled back to the beginning.
What did I say?
You circled back to the original story that you started with. You tied back into that and to not being locked into those spaces that other people put you in.
Yeah. And may everyone have that. May everyone truly have that. And whether your subtle shift is to start in the mind or the body or the home, or you want to conquer them all at the same time, like honestly, may everyone have that.
All right. I have one last question for you. If there's anything that you could leave this audience with today that we haven't talked about, what would it be?
Trust the voice. Trust the voice. Invite yourself to turn up the volume of what it is that is being said, and allow it to be said, even if it's in the privacy of your own home to begin with. There's this idea that there's people out there that know more than you do, or you've got to read a book, or, outside of being a brain surgeon, there might be some things you need to know, right? But the voice within you is attempting to speak to you, and let it.
Yeah. So good. Okay. Colleen, thank you. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for spending this time with me. It honestly flew by. But I told you I could talk to you every day. You have a way with words. You have a way of expressing yourself and drawing greatness out of people. And thank you.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be part of your greatness, and to be here. If there's anything I can do for your audience, whether it's a free meditation recording or someone wants to talk further, I am always open. So if there's something that your audience is interested in that I can offer them, I have a wellness toolkit. I'm happy to provide that at no cost to your audience. We just got to keep loving on each other and lifting each other. So anything that I have, like Huberman says, at no cost. Right. What does he say? Doesn't he say to know we're low cost, because we are our own best healer kind of thing. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will definitely put your contact information in the notes, and thank you.
Shine bright today, Carrie. Thank you, sweetie.
Okay. I hope that you loved listening to Colleen as much as I do. I love every conversation with her. I love every time that we chat via Zoom or on the phone or text. She's just such an amazing person. So if she had anything to say that you want to hear more on, or you want to connect with her, please do. I will leave her contact information in the notes, and reach out to me if you have more questions, or if you need me to connect you with her. I'd love that. Do that. And above all else, remember that I believe in you, and you can manifest the life of your dreams.